Viewers have asked that I do a video on React Router 6 plus module federation plus micro front ends. And of course, I'm going to do that right now, but I'm even going to do more than that. We are going to build these applications. They're really cool. They use both a combination of build time dependencies and micro front ends, plus runtime, plus React Router 6, plus shared state management and more. It's so much fun. Let's jump right into it. Hi, I'm Jack Harrington. I'm a principal full-stack software engineer, and I'm so glad to be getting back into module federation and micro front ends in this video and show you all this cool stuff. But I do want to do it in a little bit of a different way this time. What I'm going to do is we are going to use a layered approach as we build these applications. And what that's going to allow us to do is have safe fallback points for you when you implement this on your own. We're going to start off using build time dependencies. And that's actually the safest way to do micro front ends. And then we're going to add on to that runtime dependencies. And the reason that we're going to take that approach is I want you to have those safe fallbacks so that when the runtime dependency stuff isn't working out for you, the build time dependency stuff will, and you always have safe code that works to fall back on. I think that's really important. And the other thing that's a little bit different about this video is that I'm going to leave in a bunch of the build troubles, the little issues where things don't line up or the versions don't work or things like that. I'm going to show all those to you because that's the kind of stuff that you're going to have to work through when you build systems like this. And I think it's important to see all of that as we progress. All right, without further ado, let's go check out our movie system. So here we've got two apps. They're both based on Create React app. One's called Playlist and the other is called Movies. And the idea is that we are a movie rental company or something. And we have a multi-app architecture, meaning that we can deploy this Playlist app and this Movies app separately and independently, and they're maintained by different teams. But we want to reuse a lot of stuff in between those two. In particular, we want to reuse the routes. So for example, this playlist route, which has the list of movie that we want to view. So let's go here and add one. We'll add Shang-Chi and we'll put that into our playlist. And now we got it over on our viewing list. That's really cool. So this route, this playlist route is actually maintained by the playlist team, and the home route is maintained by the movies team. So both of these applications can show both of the routes, which is really neat. And it actually helps for things like end-to-end testing, where you want to be able to, for example, test that you can add Halo to the playlist and then go see that it's in the playlist and maybe play it. And you want to be able to write a test that is complete end-to-end for that. And you want to be able to run that test in either of these applications. So being able to share routes like that is actually really cool. So before we get into the code, let's go take a look at our architecture. Okay, so here's our architecture. Up at the top, we've got our Movies app and we've got our Playlist app. Those are both Create React app apps. And then anything from this line down is a package. Anything above this line is an app up here. And so what's in our set of packages down here? Well, our Movies app maintains the Movies content package, and the Playlist app maintains the Playlist content package. So these are the different routes. So this Movies content has the Movies route and the Playlist content has the Playlist route. And both of those leverage the Card MFE down here. That's the movie card that has the add button on it. So that's why it's an MFE, because it's a little bit smart. It knows how to talk to the store. And then all of this sits on top of the UI platform, which contains the AppShell, which is shared between these two and provides all of the routing infrastructure to get you around. Really cool, right? And then all of that is built on top of Mantine, which is a UI library, and React, which is obviously also a UI library. All right, let's go and start building this out. So the first thing I'm going to do is go over to Turborepo, because we're going to build this as a monorepo. So I need to get that set up. So now I'm going to go back to my terminal and do create Turborepo latest, and then do MF router 6 for module federation router 6. And I'm going to use PMPM for this. You can use yarn or NPM, whichever way you like it. Okay, looks good. Let's go and bring that up in VS Code. And now I'm going to bring up the terminal, and from here at the top end, I'm going to do pm dev, and that's going to run the dev command on all of the packages and all of the apps. So let's go take a look at what's actually launched right now. So we go into localhost 3000. We got web with boop, and then 3001 is docs with boop. I'm pretty far away from a movies app. So, okay, what do we have? Well, we have over here in the apps directory, we've got docs and web. And let's just take a look at docs for a second. It's a Next.js app, and under pages, it's got index, and index brings in button from UI. So UI is over here in packages, and it's got an index, which exports the button, and then button is defined as just a button with boop on it. Pretty cool, right? And the way that this linkage is actually created is over here in the package JSON. You can see that UI has workspace star on it, and that basically just says get the UI package from within the workspace. And then it's the pm workspace system that allows you to share packages between the apps and the other packages in there. And the same sort of thing applies to npm. Yarn also have it. They're just slightly different implementations, but they all have this workspace idea. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is build out our first app. So we're going to build out the movies app. So I'm going to go into the console here, and I'm going to go into the apps directory. And then we're going to just do the usual pmpx, which is the pm version of npx, of create React app. And I'm going to create movies, and I'm going to use the TypeScript template. Okay, so there we go. We have our movies app created, but it's a create React app. You might be asking yourself, well, why did you use a create React app as opposed to a Next.js app? Next.js is really cool, and I agree, but it's not currently compatible with Module Federation. You'd have to buy a plugin for that, and I don't want to do that to you. I want to give you the ability to do this all for free. So I'm going to use create React app. It's fine. Okay, so next thing we need to do is make some minor modifications to our movies app. So let's go over here into movies. And one thing is to change start to dev. And we're doing that because when we are at the top level and we do pm dev, it's actually going to run dev as a script command on all of the projects. And if we add start there, it wouldn't actually start it. So we need dev. Now let's go make another small change. I'm going to go and get tsconfig from the workspace. So what is that? Well, tsconfig is over here. It's one of the packages, just like UI. And it's basically just got a bunch of JSON files in it, in particular the Next.js JSON that has the TS configuration for Next.js apps, but it actually turns out to work just as well for create React app as well. So we're just going to do that same thing. We're going to go over here into web and see what the TS config looks like. Okay, cool. So we want to bring in exactly that TS config over into our movies. It works just fine. And let's see. So one more thing. Let's go get rid of the node modules that I put in there. Don't really need those. So we'll do rmdfr node modules. And then we'll go back up to the top level directory and then do pm and then install. Now that's going to do two things. That's actually going to rebuild all of those dependencies from movies and get those into the right spot for the mono repo. It's also going to go and make the linkage between tsconfig and that movies app. So it's going to do those workspace linkages as well. So anytime we make changes to the workspace linkages in packages.json, we need to do a pmi at the top level to get those linkings working. Okay, so let's try pm dev here and see how we go. All right, so something's already running on port 3000. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go and delete docs and web. We really don't need those anymore. And now let's try it again. Okay, looks pretty good. We are running a test, so let's get rid of the testing for the moment. Just get rid of that, delete. Create React app to start, awesome. So the next thing we need to do is see if we can get to that UI package, because in that UI package, we are going to build out our Mantine AppShell that's going to have our React router in it and all that. So we need to be able to get access to that UI package. So let's go over to our package JSON again, and then bring in UI. So bring it in from the workspace. And again, I got to do that PMPMI to make that linkage. Okay, nice. And we'll go over to our app.tsx, and I'm just going to delete a lot of this stuff. And we want to bring in that boot button. So let's go and bring in from UI the button. All right. Let's see how we go. So PMPM dev. All right, so this is a nasty little thing. So what's happening here is that the Next.js way that the Webpack is configured is different from the Create React App way. And the Create React App way doesn't support building TypeScript from external modules. So what we need to do is pre-build the TypeScript in our library. So let's go do that. So I'm going to go over here to our package.json, and I'm going to add some scripts. So I'll add dev, and what dev is going to do is just do tsc, which is the TS compiler, and we're going to set the out directory to dist. So we'll make a little dist directory with our output, and then we'll do the same thing for build. Now over here in dev, we're going to add watch because we want to watch that directory, look for any changes, and automatically recompile. So let's go and let's just go and try this. I'm going to go over into packages UI and then do PMPM and then build. So we'll see what it builds. So we looked in this dist directory. Now I got some cool stuff. We got index.t.ts. So we're going to put that under dist. And we've also got index.js, which we're going to put under main. Okay, cool. All right, so now we're no longer exporting TypeScript, we're exporting the built version of TypeScript. You're still going to have the typings because you still have types here, so that's still going to work, but we are not going to make the apps do the compilation of the code that's in these packages. Okay, so let's try this out, see if it works. So we'll go back up to the top level, do PMPM dev. Hey, nice. Boop. I love it. That's great. Okay. Okay, that was really clean. So, all right, next thing we need to do is actually bring in Mantine. So let's do that because we want to build out our AppShell, right? So first thing to do is take a look over. Let's take a look first at what Mantine is. If you're not familiar with it, it is a fully featured React component library. Indeed it is. Really nice. And it's actually pretty easy to get started. All you got to do is bring in this Mantine hooks and Mantine core libraries. So let's go do that. We'll go and bring in Mantine hooks and Mantine core. So let's go over into our packages UI and then do PMPM add and give it those two libraries. And then we'll go over into our apps and into our movies and do the same PMPM add thing there. Okay, cool. So let's go into our index and we'll start building out our app shell. So we want to bring in the app shell from Mantine. We'll get rid of button here. And then we want to export our own version of an app shell. We're going to export app shell. It's going to be a React function component. And we can't really self-reference, so we got to alias this. We'll call it Mantine app shell. And then in the app shell, I'm just going to say div hello. All right, cool. So let's save that out. And then I'm going to go over to here to app.tsx. And I'm going to bring in AppShell. And we'll just replace all of this with AppShell. Okay, let's try this out. So I'll go back up to the top level and then do PMPM I just for giggles to make sure everything's cool. And then PMPM dev. Okay, now it's not working. So what's up? So let's go take a look at the console and see that we have an invalid hook call. And what that's telling me is that we have two different versions of React going on here. So what happened is Create React App is on React 18 and the code over in Packages UI is on React 17. That's a big no-no. So let's go and change out the React versions. Cool. So now they're both on the same React version, but we got to go do our PMPM I thing to make sure that that all happens. And then we'll do PMPM dev again. Now let's see. Did it work? Will it blend? Hey, nice, cool. So we got an AppShell, doesn't really do much. So let's go and make our AppShell even better. So I'm gonna go and bring in a title. And the way this AppShell works is you say something along the lines of header, and then you give it, within that, we'll say a header, which we'll get from Mantine. And then inside of the header, we'll put a title, which is also a Mantine component, and we'll give it the title. So let's bring in header and title. And it's missing a few properties here, so we'll add those. A height of 60, a padding, and set the display to be flex. And let's take a look. Oh, we haven't done title. Cool. No, we have not, so let's go and add in a title. So title here is going to be movies. All right, pretty good. All right, cool, this is nice. So let's do a few more fix-ups here. So I'm going to add a little padding. I'm going to change the background so that if the color scheme is dark, then we use a nice dark gray background. Let's go take a look. Okay, nice. All right. Now I do want to be able to visually distinguish between the two apps, so I'm going to allow for a color scheme to pass through so that the host app can say whether it wants a dark or light color scheme. And to do that, we need to bring in Mantine provider. That's going to give us our look. And then I need to wrap the AppShell in that provider. So we'll go and drop that down there and finish it off. And it's basically saying, hey, set the color scheme to either light or dark, and then get global styles and also normalize the CSS. So let's try this out. Looks good, but let's try the dark theme. So it's change that to color scheme as dark. Beauteous. Awesome. Okay. I'll keep that as light for the moment. So we'll do movies as light and then the playlist one as dark. Okay, so let's go over here and have a look at what we had before. So our AppShell before was the header, just like we had before, but we also had this number over here. We're going to have that in a bit as we go and create our store. And we got this section over here, which is our nav bar, and it has the links. And those then go to the various routes using React Router 6. So the next thing we need to do is bring in React Router DOM for React Router 6. So let's go to Packages UI, and then we will bring in React Router DOM. Now this is very cool. We actually only bring it into this one particular package. The apps don't know that we're going to be using React Router DOM. The components don't really know that we're going to be using. The only thing it's going to be knowing that we're using React Router DOM is this AppShell. It's going to do all of the work for us. It's really nice. Okay, let's close this out. And then I'm going to go bring in some stuff from React Router DOM, including the browser router, which we will wrap this thing in. So browser router up here. And then we need our outlet, and our outlet is going to be the content section down here. That's where we're going to put the content that we find. And then we're going to have our routes and our links. So first off, let's go and specify what we want for routes. So we want it to be able to handle routes. So we want to be able to give the AppShell an array of, hey, this route goes to this component. So we'll define that as a route. So we have a route, has an element. That's the, what do you want me to render when I get this path, and then the path. So we're going to have routes here, and then we'll bring it in, routes, cool. And then we need a place to put this. I'm just going to put this right here next to the outlet. It doesn't really matter because this is just data. I'm going to map through those routes, and that's pretty good, although I need to invoke this. So I will do that as a route element like that. Cool. And yeah, there we go. So actually at this point, we do have a system that we can use. So I'm going to go over here to app.tsx. Again, we're missing the routes. So we put in routes, and it's going to be an array. And then within that array, we're going to get path slash and the element, sure, div home like that. So hit save, and let's see. Okay, got to actually run it. So let's go back up to the top level directory, do pm dev here. Okay, we're currently on playlist, so let's do slash. Hey, nice. Is this really home? Just make sure. Okay, and yeah, nice. Very cool. Okay, so we've got routing working. Now we just need to have a nav bar full of links over here so you can nav bar around. So let's go and implement that. Okay, so to do that, we're gonna go and define a nav link. So a nav link has the label, what do you want it to say on the screen, and the path, where do you want it to go? And so we need a bunch of nav links. So say we want our nav links. It's gonna be required. And we'll get those in there too. You have to have something. I mean, you have to have a way for the user to get around. And then we're going to specify a nav bar. So the nav bar will have the nav bar component, which has a certain size to it. That's all just basically man-time stuff. And then we're going to iterate through those nav links and create main links for all of those. We don't have main link defined yet, so let's go do that. So first off, let's bring in nav bar, and then we'll go define our main link component. Now this is basically just a big piece of man-time styling. So I'll just paste it in here. Basically, we got main link. It's got the label and the path, which comes from nav link. And then we got their unstyle button here, which is what we really style up because it's unstyled to start with. We got our group, and then within that text. So let's do that. Let's see, group and text. Okay, looks pretty good. All right, so what do we want to do here? Well, okay, so we've got nav links. So let's go over here to our app and then do that. So let's see, nav links equals, and then we'll give it an array, and we'll say the label is home and the path is / sure. Okay, let's take a look. Oh, that's nice. Okay, let's actually try this out. So let's do, for example, playlist. And that's going to be on / playlist. But we don't actually have that. So let's do playlist here. Oh, look, don't get anything cool. But if we go over and we add a route for playlist on / playlist, let's see. That is so slick. That is awesome. I love it. Cool. Okay. So I mentioned at the start, we are going to have like safe fallback points, right? So that's what I'm going to do now. We're going to go back into our code, and I am going to stop all this. I am going to take a look around and see what we need to do to get working. So we'll do get init, and we'll just add everything at the top level. And it tells us that, oh, we have a submodule in apps movies. Well, what that means is that we already have a Git directory in apps movies because it's a create React app. So let me get rid of the Git that I just created. And then I'm also going to get rid of the Git in apps movies Git. And then I'm going to get init again and git add. And let's see, git status. Okay, so this looks pretty good. So this has the apps movies. It has the packages that we just created. Nice. It has the dist directory. Let's get rid of that. So we don't need that. So let's do, here's my git ignore. I want to get rid of anything that's dist. Okay, cool. All right. Okay, that looks cleaner to me. Nice. Let's get rid of button too. Don't need that. Okay. So one more time. And now I'm going to commit. And we'll call this one basic routing working. How's that sound? Cool. Okay, so where are we? Well, let me bring in my architecture DO and take a look at it. So what we currently have is we currently have our movies app and we have our UI, right, like that. And in order to keep building, we kind of have to build the store first because so much of this depends on it. This card wants to be able to add items to the store. You know, this header wants to be able to actually talk to the store and see how many items are in the playlist and all that. So it seems like the next logical thing to do would be to build store. So let's go do that. And to do that, I am going to go into our packages directory, and then I'm going to copy the UI package to store. And let's go take a look inside store and see what we can fix right away. So UI is now going to be called store. And let's see, I don't need React. I'll keep that around actually. Okay, so, okay, I don't need Mantine, that's for sure. Okay, but what I do need is I need my old favorite, or my current favorite. We'll go into the store and we will add Zustand. It's a really nice, lightweight state manager, kind of Reduxy, but just so much easier. Okay, so we'll go into our index, and I'm just going to get rid of all that. And then I'm going to bring in create from Zustand. And then we're going to define that we have a movie type. And then I'm going to export the use store hook that we're going to create using Zustand. And let's define what our store is going to look like. Our store is going to have movies. It's going to be a list of all the movies. And then it's going to have the ability to add a movie. So you add a movie, and it's just going to add it to the store. And so what is that going to start with? Well, our movies is going to start with an empty array. And then we will be able to add a movie. And add we'll call set. It'll get given the current state, and then we'll just add the movie onto the list of movies. There it is. There's our store. Crazy, right? Okay, cool. So let's go over to our UI, and we want to first put this in the header, right? So let's go over to package, and then we'll go into here. Let's see, RS, I think. Store, workspace star, cool. And let's go into our index. And then over in here, we're going to import use store from the store. It's giving us underline because we haven't done that PMPMI yet. So let's go down here and we want to return that because we have to have a hook invocation here. And that hook is to do use store. And we'll say we want the list of movies from uStore, cool. And then down in the header, we're just going to add some additional text to show the number of movies that you've selected. So let's try this out. Let's see if this works. So at the moment, we don't have any ability to add a movie, but that's fine. We're just going to show that we have 0 movies selected. So go PMPMI to get that linkage going. And then PMPM to get it all rocking and rolling. Ah, nice. Okay, we got 0 selected. Flushed against movies there. Let's not do that. So let's see. Title SX is flex grow 1, and that will push it over to the edge. So now we got 0 selected over here. Awesome sauce. So now what we want to do is have a list of all of our movies in the home. So let's go over here and we'll create a movies content. And that's going to import React. And we'll say that we have a movies content. We'll have a div in there that says, movies should go here. And then we'll export that as the default. Now let's close up a few files because we're just going to go over here into our app.tsx. And we're going to import that movies content from the local file. And put it in here as our element. So let's see. That's what we want for our movies content. So movies should go here, right? This is going to be our list of movies, our beautiful cards that we created before, like this gorgeous card here. So let's go and now build that card. So we'll go back over into our packages directory. And again, I'm going to do that trick of copying UI because it's kind of a seed. It's all set up in the right way. And we'll create one called card. Okay, so let's go take a look in card and see what we've got. Again, we'll tweak the package JSON. So we've got a name of card. What else do we not need? We don't need React Router DOM, but we are set up with store, which is good because we do want to have a button on it that allows you to add that particular movie to that list. So let's go over here into our index and we're just going to get rid of all of this. And let's bring in a kind of preamble here. So we have a movie card. It's a React function component. It takes the title and the image of the movie. And then it also brings in this cool stuff from Mantine, a card, an image, button group, all that, and also our use store. so that we can go and add if we have this show ad button enabled. Then we're going to bring in our theme and our add movie function from the store. And then we're going to define our card. So our card is going to have a little bit of shadow. It's going to have some padding. It's going to have that image. It's going to have the title down below it. And then it's going to have the add button, which will, when it's clicked, call add movie with the title and the image. So we're going to add that to the list. And looks good. I'm not sure why this is saying that there's no Mantine theme, because there actually is. So I guess there's some issue there with the typing. It's not a big deal, but apparently that's a problem. So, okay, so let's go over here to our apps. And then in here, we're going to go and bring in the card library. So we're going to bring in card from the workspace. And then we'll go back up to the top level. And then we'll do PMPMI to do the linkage. Cool. And now let's go actually put some UI on it. So let's go here to source, go to movies content. And I want to bring in movie card from the card that we just created. Now it hasn't been built yet. That's why we're getting those underlines. And now we need some movies. So I'm just going to bring in a whole blob of data for movies. So it's just going to be a list of, so we've got a whole list of movies here. We've got all these movies, like for example, Doctor Strange. Click on that, get Doctor Strange. Cool. I've actually seen that movie. I don't know, heard mixed things. And now let's go implement on this. So I'm going to go and just real quickly bring in a grid and then call movie card in each one of the movies. And the grid is coming in from our Mantine core. So let's go bring that in, grid from Mantine. And let's try it out. So let's do yarn. All right, so let's do PMPM dev up at the top end here. I'm so used to saying yarn. I keep saying yarn over and over again. And hot dang, that looks cool. Doesn't that look nice? All right, cool. This is awesome. Okay, so let's go and take a look at where we are and do a checkpoint. So right now we have a movies app. We have our UI that has the AppShell on it. We've got our store that's maintaining our list of movies, and we've got our card like that. This is pretty good. So made some good progress. In fact, actually, let's try out to just make sure this add the list function. Does that actually work? So let's see. Add to list. Yep. It went 1 selected. Let's add Atom project 2 selected. We don't really know yet because we don't have this playlist. But let's go and check in so that we have a nice, again, safe stopping point. If things go sideways, we want to have a nice, safe stopping point. So let's do git add, and then git commit. This way, movies app completed to a certain degree. All right, so cool, nice. So the next thing we want to do is go build that playlist app, right? Because we want to be able to show off what's in the playlist. So we'll go over here, terminal, and then we'll go into our apps. And I'm going to copy the movies app to the playlist app. Okay, let's take a look. So it's doing the same thing. So it's really weird. VS Code, for some reason, and I've run through this video countless times now, but it doesn't pick up that I've added that app. So I'm going to go and dump out of VS Code and then go back over here and do exactly just the same command again. Bring up VS Code. And there it is, playlist. I don't know. I can't explain it. Okay, a couple of things. Let's get rid of package locks. Don't need those. And bye-bye. Okay, cool. I probably don't need those readmes either. Get rid of those. That's fine. Okay, but what we do need to do is we need to go in here to package JSON and change that to playlist. And the dev hack is already done, but we don't want everybody running on port 3000. We have to have different ports, so we'll call that port 3001. And there you go. So let's go over here to app.tsx and call this playlist. And we will have, yeah, there you go. So that's cool. Oh, and let's make it the dark mode, right? So what was it again? Color scheme is dark. Cool. All right, let's try it. PMPM dev. Okay, whoa, that's lots of problems there. But our movies app is okay, so cool. So what's happened here is that my recursive copy has gone and kind of messed up PMPM. So what I'm going to do is just kind of clean up stuff. I'm going to RMFR node modules at this level, and then I'm also going to remove node modules for any of the apps. And then I'm going to do my PMPMI, get everything installed, and then PMPM dev to get it running. Let's see. You be happy this time? All right, looks like movies is good and playlist is good. Nice. Of course, the only reason we have home here is that this is an exact copy of this guy. So yeah, that's not great. Okay, so let's do some hacking on here. We don't want movies content because that's not fair. So this is going to be, should be the movies route. But we do want to have our playlist route. So we're going to have playlist content. And we're going to do basically the same thing we did with movies content, but for the playlist. So in this playlist content, we're going to bring in box title and grid from Mantine Core that we're going to use for our styling down here. We're going to have viewing list inside of a box. And then we're going to have that grid like we did before. But in this case, we're going to get the movies from our store. So we need to hook this into the store. Let's go over to the package JSON and make sure that we're hooked up on the store. RST store. Cool. All right, great. We'll do our PMPMI to get it all linked up. And then our PMPM dev. And of course, this isn't going to show anything because there's no way to get anything into that playlist. So let's go back over here and, oh, and we haven't actually hooked it up yet. So let's go and do that. So we'll go and bring in playlist content. And why aren't you happy with that? Oh, it's playlist. And playlist. Okay, cool. Ah, there we go. So viewing list, but there's nothing in it. And there's no way to get anything in it because we don't have that home where we can add items to the playlist. So that's what we need to do now. So where are we architecturally? So architecturally, let's go take a look at our architecture DO again. We now have our two apps. We've got the movies app and the playlist app. We have our card, we have our UI shared, we have a store, but we're not actually showing the routes between these two things, right? And so that's what we want to do. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the content from each of these and we're going to create content route packages, right? So movies is going to have the movie content package and playlist is going to have the playlist content package that corresponds to it. Okay, cool. And then we'll be able to actually connect those two so that movies can show the movies content and the playlist can show the movies and also the playlist like that. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. We pretty much have everything ready to go. We just need to make it happen. So let's go over here to our console, go into packages again. And again, we'll clone UI. We'll call this one movies content. And we'll do that one first. So we'll go take the movies content and go over here into packages, into movies content, and just drop it in there. There we go. Cool. And we'll call this one movies content. And looks like everything's cool there. It probably has everything it needs. So as for the index, we're just going to go and bring in, is it the default export? Yes, it's the default export. So let's see. We're going to bring in movies content from movies content. And then we're going to export that as, sure, just movies content like that. Okay, cool. And let's import React just for safety's sake. Okay. Save, cool. And now we'll go over here to our movies app and go into packages. And again, we need to do this workspace stuff. So workspace, let's see, I guess there you go. Movies content. Gonna get that from there and go into app.tsx and we'll get the movies content from the movies content package, just like that. And now we've got to go back up to the top level directory and then do pmpmi to get that going. And let's see, just close out a bunch of these files. Don't need to look at that. And then do pmpm-dev. All right, let's take a look. So under movies, can I do that? Yes, I can get movies. Awesome. And this one still doesn't have it. So that's cool. So let's go over here and go to our playlist app. And then in package.json, we're also going to bring in movies here. And then go over to our app.tsx. And let's just clone it from here. Cool. So I'm lazy. Okay. App.tsx. Bring in our movies content. And now we can just drop that in there. Movies content. Nice. Okay, but it's now giving us some issues. So let's do pmpmi at the top end again. pmpm-dev. Okay. Oh, wow. Look at this. Now we've got playlist showing the movie list. Cool. So let's hit Doctor Strange, go over here, and awesome. Very cool. Okay. So architecturally speaking, we now have both of our apps, and both of them are talking to this one to get that movies tab. Cool. So now we've got to do the exact same thing for this guy to get the playlist content across. Cool. Okay. So let's do that. Let's go back into our directories and the packages. Again, clone UI to be playlist content. And then we'll go take our playlist content. And we'll go remove movies content from there. We don't need it anymore. Well, we never needed it. And we'll take playlist content and go down here to playlist content. Cool. We're just going to import the playlist content or playlist from the playlist content, or fine, we'll just export it. And we'll import React from React. Cool. Nice. And change the package JSON to be playlist content. Okay, cool. And let's see, now we've got that. Now we need to go and add it to both of our package JSONs. So here, package JSON, LMNOP, playlist, content, and then playlist also brings in playlist content. And we'll go into apps.tsx, and we will bring in playlist from, oh, look at that, actually try to track it, playlist content. Okay, and we'll do the same thing over here, playlist content. Drop it in there. Cool. And I think that's pretty good. All right, so let's go back up on the level and then do pmpmi again. And then pmpm-dev. And let's take a look. So we got home, we got playlist in the movies app. That is awesome. And let's add Shang-Chi over here. And there you go, Shang-Chi. Nice. And the same sort of thing over here. We'll add Turning Red. And there we go. Awesome. Encanto. Okay, cool. Beautiful. I love it. I also love the look of these. I mean, I think it's just gorgeous. Like, you know, it's just the Mantine plus some cards. It just looks very pretty. Okay, so architectural checkpoint. Let's go take a look. I think we're good here. This is really awesome. So I'm enjoying this. I think this is a fun little setup here. So let's go take a look at our architecture.do. And let's see where we are. Well, we've got our movies app. We've got our playlist app. Those are sharing routes across each other like that. Everybody's happy. And if I make a change to either of these, everything is cool. These are all talking to Card, which exists on top of the platform that has our AppShell and our store. That's really cool. Okay, so this is a complete build time solution. So whenever you update, for example, the movies content, all you need to do is redeploy. You just redeploy this guy and redeploy this guy, and you're good to go. You make a change to the playlist, for example. You redeploy this guy and redeploy this guy, and you're good to go. You're out the door. It's awesome. Any change here, and this is fine. Like, this is very, very safe. You're seeing that, like, typing is very safe here. It's all very safe. And there's been some interesting architectural chat around build time versus runtime. And the Vercel folks have made the argument, and I think it's an interesting one, that if your build system is fast enough, like if all this works like really, really fast, if all of these apps deploy in, 10 minutes or less, 15 minutes or less, then you really don't need runtime dependencies, which is what we're going to get into next. So in the runtime world, what we're going to be able to do is we're going to be able to say, okay, this guy is going, for example, the movies app is going to depend on the playlist component dynamically, so that when playlist updates its playlist component, the movies app will update that content without having to redeploy. So no redeploy here, but you still get new fresh content from here, which is pretty neat. But there's some complications to it. And yeah, so what we're going to use to do this is we're going to use module federation to do this. But before we get there, let's go and save this as complete build time dependency example. So get at everything, and then we'll add complete build time dependency example. Okay, so this is where having these safe fallbacks is really, really important, right? We now have a system that works. You can go and update things like the playlist component or the movies component, and it's automatic. It gets out there. It's very safe. All the typing works and everything else. So now that we're going and trying out module federation, if things don't work out, that's fine because we have a safe fallback point. So that's a really important part. And that's why I'm layering this example like this. I think you should do the same. So as you go and build out your micro front end stuff, always be going from a working point to a working point to a working point. We have something working right now. So what we're going to go and do is we're going to go into this apps directory with movies, and we're going to bring in Krakow. What Krakow is going to allow us to do is it's going to allow us to hack the Webpack config of a create React app. So we'll go and add it in development mode like that. And we're going to do the same thing for playlist, because in order for module federation to work, both of the applications have to be talking module federation. So let's go take a look here in our packages, and we are going to go and change out some stuff. We're going to change out this React scripts for Krakow. And then we're going to add a Krakow RC file. So in here, new file, we're going to add the Krakow rc.js. And all it's going to do is export a function, which is going to return nothing. And we're just going to make sure that that just boots. Like, can we go and boot this thing with Krakow? So go back up 2 levels. We'll go and do pm dev. And working here is not blowing up. And it looks like we are not blowing up. So, hey, that's a plus. Okay. So we're going to bring in our module federation plugin, and we're going to bring in our dependencies. So now let's go and start specifying our overrides for Webpack. So we're going to put in here our Webpack, and we're going to specify that our public path thing is for auto. Now, if you don't know much about module federation, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about the configuration on this one. I've got a lot of videos on module federation that you can check out that kind of go into detail on it. So I want to basically just get this. So in this video, we're basically just kind of get it going. So in this video, I'm going to assume that you kind of know some of the basics. For example, that we're going to add like a module federation plugin here. And for example, in this case, the name of it is going to be movies. And the file name is going to be remote entry.js. That's going to be our manifest of all of the stuff that we're going to expose. And then we're going to say that our React stuff is singletons. So that's very important. You have to have React specified as a singleton because the hook stuff is shared kind of globally. And if you don't have it as a singleton, then it messes up hooks and all that. So let's save that out. And let's try it out. So let's go and see what chaos is reigned when we do this. So pm dev. And okay, so first off, looks like we've got some syntax errors. So let's fix that. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is expose something. So I can't expose something directly from a library, but what I can do is essentially create like a little shim here. So I'm going to create a movies content.tsx file, and it's going to import movies content and basically pass it through. So we'll do the movies content here, and then I'm going to export that as the default, and I'll also bring in React. And now over here in our Krakow RC.js, we are going to expose that. So let's go add exposes and then say that we want movies content, or just movies in this case. And we'll go to source movies content. And so this is going to expose from the movies app, the movies content. All right, so it looks like we have some issues. Okay, so we have movies content here. Oh, that's because I misspelled the name, movies content. But we've also got these issues around workspace star. So what's happening here is that we are bringing in deps like that, right? And the deps are just from this package.json. The package.json over here says workspace star, where normally it would say something like a version number like this. And Webpack's saying, I have no idea what to do with workspace star. So you need to fix that. So let's go over here and take a look at everything that says workspace star. So that would be, let's go back over to package.json, the card. And instead of saying workspace star, we're going to give it an object and say that we have like singleton true. So we want to make sure that we only have one version of card. And let's see, what else do we need? So we need movies content. Got dash in it, so it needs to be that. Got playlist content. And probably tsconfig, I'm guessing. Okay, let's take a look. tsconfig. Cool. All right, let's give it a try. All right, looks like I'm missing one. Let's take a look. Package.json. Card, movies content. Oh, UI. Whoops. Yeah. Duh. Okay. And UI. All right. Okay. So now it's not blowing up that way. So let's go take a look at how it is blowing up. Well, it's saying that shared module is not available for eager consumption. What this is telling us is that our application is not bootstrapped, which means that we're not giving Webpack any time to actually load these dynamic imports that we haven't actually done yet. But we need to go and set it up so that it can handle that. So the way that we do that is we go over here to our index.tsx, and I'm going to rename it bootstrap. And then I'm going to create an index file that imports bootstrap, but does it dynamically. And that's going to give Webpack that time to breathe. Now I'm going to get a little error from TypeScript about isolated modules. And the way that I get around that is I just export a default value out of here to do something. And I'll say that's true. And there we go. Now we're working. That's awesome. Very cool. Great. Okay, so another thing that's come out of this is we now have a remote entry file. And that remote entry file is what the playlist app is going to consume in order to use that movies content out of home as the content that it's going to put over here into its home, right? So we're going to load that in dynamically. So let's go and do the exact same thing that we did to the movies app to the playlist app. So we'll go over here and stop this, and we'll go into apps playlist. And then we're going to, again, add that Krakow. And let's go down into our package.json and do Krakow instead of React scripts. And we'll go and copy Krakow RC. And we'll call this one playlist. And we're not going to expose anything. What we're going to do is we're going to consume stuff. So the way we do that is we specify it as a remote. So we have remotes, and it's going to be movies. And that is going to be movies and then we'll give it that localhost. It's going to be on 3000. Like that. Nice. Cool. And what else do we need to do? Well, we need to do that bootstrapping thing. So let's just get that out of the way. So do bootstrap over here. and we'll create our index.tsx or just copy it from here. And that's going to do that bootloader. And let's try it out. Let's see if it works. Okay, so go back up to npm dev. Okay, looks like we still have some issues with that workspace star thing. So let's see if there's any new stuff that we have specified in there that we didn't have in the other one. So go to here, package JSON, card, movies content, playlist content, store. Okay, so we have store that we didn't have before. So let's go and add in store into our list. Okay, cool. Let's try this one again. All right, looks good. Nice. Okay, so let us, instead of importing movies content from movies content, we are instead going to import movies content from movies/movies, I think it was. Now it's going to give us a TS error, and I'm just going to ignore that. And let's try it out. So let's hit refresh, and that's cool, but do we really know? So if we were to go over here to our movies content, could we add something in? So for example, let's add a title and then our grid. There we go, movies. All right, looks good, love it. So we can get that dynamic behavior, and let's go back over to our architecture diagram and I'll show you what's going on here. It might be a little bit confusing at this point. So we have our movies app, and we have our playlist app, and they are hard linking build-wise to these two, right? But in addition to that, this guy, movies, is exposing the content from movies content as a federated module between those two. And then this guy is consuming that as a federated module. So it really doesn't need to have this connection anymore. But what happens if this gets smushed, right? What happens if for some reason, like this guy is no longer actually putting out this module? Is there a way where if this is problematic, then we can fall back on this down here? Well, that's what we're going to do next. So, but to start, we're going to do our little breakpoint thing. So let's go and say, add all of it, and then commit that as first draft of runtime sharing. So now we've got runtime sharing working. So let's see if we can get it to run a bit more reliably. So I'm going to go and create two terminals here. And we're going to go into apps and then movies and then run it from there. And then I'm going to go over into apps and playlist and run it from there. And the reason I'm doing this is because I want to be able to kill the movies app and see what happens with the playlist app. So, okay, so getting some issues over here. That's not a big deal. But both of the applications are now running fine. That's great. But what if I take down the movies app? So I've killed movies over here. So it's no longer running. And I'm going to go and hit. And this guy has died because if I look over here in the inspector, we're seeing that we are getting an error loading the script. Okay, so how do we catch that and then put up something that basically gives us the same functionality, but maybe an older version? Well, the way that we do that in React is to use an error boundary. So let's bring in error boundary. So I'm going to go and copy the error boundary class, and this is going to allow us to capture that error. So let's go over here into our playlist app, and then in app.tsx, we'll go and paste in our error boundary class. And let's see, so I'm not going to give it any props, but I am going to say that we have an error, which is either this is basically a Boolean. That's going to be the state. And so this is going to be, for the moment, an object. And it has error is the state. Cool. We are not going to worry about that, what the error is, and we are not going to try and log the error to a service, so don't worry about that. Basically, what we want to know is, did we have an error? And if we did, then we'll put out something went wrong. Otherwise, you're going to put out the children. So in this case, the children is a React node. Cool. And now we can wrap up, and we got to go and say that the props coming in includes children. Nice. Okay. And now we can wrap this movies content, which is a dynamic thing, in our error boundary. And the error boundary is going to trap to see if movies content dies. And if it does, it's going to put up that friendly little warning. Okay, cool. So let's try it out. And let's go over here, hit refresh. And it doesn't work. Well, the reason being that we have a hard linkage to movies content. So we need to make that a lazy component. So let's do that. So we'll say that movies content is a lazy import. We'll specify that by saying react.lazy, and then giving it a asynchronous import of movies. All right, cool. And let's try it out. Oh, there we go. Now at least the page renders, but it tells us that something went wrong. So instead of doing something went wrong, which is what's happening here when we have an error, instead we actually want to run the movies content that we have from the hard linkage, the build time linkage instead. So we'll bring in movies from movies content, the hard linkage version. And what was that? That was, what we exported as movies content. Cool. So we'll call this the runtime version of movies content. And if we hit an error, then let's put in the not runtime version of movies content. All right. Hit refresh. And gives us a little linting error there. Fine, whatever. Move that up top. Cool. Ah, nice. Okay, cool. So what's happening here is if this is down, then it defaults to using the build time version. So we have safe runtime sharing between these two applications so that if the runtime stuff goes down, you've still got the build time stuff to depend on. Super cool. Okay, so let's wrap this up. I'm going to go and shut down these terminals. And then we'll go and do one last commit. So safe runtime sharing. There we go. And that's going to be the finish. But let's go just take a look one more time at our architecture, walk through it, and see what we have wrought and what you have access to over in GitHub if you follow the link in the description. So what you're going to get is you're going to get a monorepo with Turborepo as the backend on it that has two applications. It's got a movies application and it's got a playlist application, both using Create React App, both configured for module federation if you want that currently, both of which use npm linking and monorepo linking to two route packages, which so it can show routes in any of the route packages. That's very nice. They reuse a intelligent component, so a Micro-Frontend and Card, and they also reuse a AppShell that has all of the mechanics of the layout of the page in it, as well as all the routing that uses these routes in here, and also a shared Zustand store that stores the state between these two applications. It's really nice. I think it's a nice setup for you, whether you're doing e-commerce or doing any other type of setup where you want to have multiple applications, but do intelligent sharing of components between them and be able to choose when you want to between build time sharing and runtime sharing. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you got a lot out of it. It was really fun doing it, and I really love doing viewer request videos like this. Of course, if you have any questions or comments, be sure to put those in the comment section down below. I love to read those. And of course, if you like the video, hit that like button. And if you really like the video, hit the subscribe button and click on that bell and you'll be notified the next time a new Blue Collar Coder comes out.